Cooper, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the upcoming Women Who Build Summit for Construction Institute. There's a lot of excitement, and I'm really happy to be able to talk to you because you're speaking at two of our sessions. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to Women Who Build?
Sure. Laura, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This Construction Institute Women Who Build 2023, I'm really excited about the enthusiasm, the speakers, the variety. It's going to be a really great event, and I'm excited to participate. I grew up as a small general contractor and worked across the table from some pretty phenomenal human beings. I spent my entire career working in the biopharmaceutical space, still work in that space, and really have grown up in that space in an area and in a construction market where women 20 years ago were not very frequent. So I'm happy to be one of those women that stuck around for the duration and happy to be a resource for those now coming up. And I'm really excited to see the diversity that's happened within our industry and that continues to grow.
So you're going to be one of the panels that you're doing is one called Procuring for Success: How E-Procurement Can Drive Project Cost Reduction and ESG Best Practices. That is quite a mouthful. Yes, and I think that the e-procurement part is easy for most people to understand what it is that's being referred to there. But the ESG part, I'm not sure that that is very familiar to a lot of people. So can you just kind of define that for people like me who don't know what the heck those three letters together mean?
When you're looking at procurement, what companies are struggling with today is really transparency and the ability to offer that transparency to our owners. Since the pandemic, so many things have been blamed on the supply chain, and it's likely that many of those things are accurate. But what it's created is an environment where owners distrust contractors. And it's created animosity where people don't necessarily believe one another because some of these claims are absolutely crazy. Like, you couldn't make these things up. And so providing a digital method for owners and contractors to share the same information and to see transparently where things are in the procurement process creates a better relationship and allows the trust to be rebuilt. So that's the avenue for digital procurement that helps the environment and just the morale of the projects in general, because everyone on those projects is doing everything they possibly can to finish their projects. It's not that they don't want to finish. It's literally that their hands are tied. So providing that transparency, I think, is a key component of really bringing back and putting together our relationships within project teams. Thinking about how you relate that to sustainability, if you think about how much paper is wasted in the procurement process, putting that and creating that digital creates a sustainability component where you are not wasting. In addition, we can add components to our digital procurement that allows companies that have green practices that are following the scope and working towards scope 3 requirements. Those are all things that we can work towards as a part of this digital procurement. And it really is just bringing everything full circle to where we're seeing the connection, the holistic connection of everything. How sustainability affects our projects, how transparency affects our projects. All of these things play in together. We can't have one without the other.
Now I think I've got a pretty good grasp of what the big picture is. It's kind of one of those concepts that I think loses its import in the individual words you need to title it. And there are lots of examples of that, but this is one of them. And I think that my excitement bells were rung when you were talking about owners and how they're distrusting the messages that they're receiving, and then that this is creating the transparency there. And that was of note to me for many reasons, but one in particular is that, you know, I think the majority, if not all, I hate to use, blanket statements, but construction managers, general contractors, and trade partners are really looking at how can I provide great value to the owner, aside from being a commodity that is procured on lowest bid, right? Because so many construction companies really want to provide that extra service and develop those relationships, and sometimes it pays off through asset relationships, and then other times it's frustrating because there's so much low bid, which means low quality, which means they kind of don't want to do it because they want to protect their brand. I know I'm throwing a lot of thoughts out all at once, but here is a topic that I think is of special note, because you've just outlined a way that companies who are interested in bidding and winning work because of their brand and their reputation and the added value that they bring to the table, this is something that they can use to actually do that, like to show that. And those are hard to like put into little boxes and say, here is something you can actually do aside from marketing. This is a true added value proposition. So I like that. Thank you. How do you like the way I just like throw out anything I think of, because it's all about connecting dots, right?
Well, and I love connecting dots. I love connecting people. And as I've done more and more of the connecting of people, and this isn't necessarily for my gain, it's for everybody else's gain, just to have a larger network and a larger body of trusted resources. And I think what this really shows is demonstrates how we struggle with manpower. And everything right now is, how do we get the same quality result we had with our current market conditions, our current supply chain, our current workforce? So if we can provide with digital tools some sort of incremental increase in productivity, then our struggle to fill positions decreases. And it isn't going to decrease like magic. Nothing is magic. But if we can help improve communications or productivity by 10 or 20% with a couple of different applications, you can really think about incrementally what could happen in the field if those folks aren't necessarily tied to their office and their desks.
Right. And I think and what's interesting for what you just said is, to me, the tie between this conversation that you're going to be having about e-procurement and ESG, and the next one, which is AI, blockchain, and robots, right? And where the technology is taking us. And I think that that's a really like easy place to go, because the thing is that the more we can eliminate the repetitive, non-value add work that we do in each process, the more that frees people up, not just physically, but mentally, energy usage, right? I mean, we only have so much gas in our personal tanks throughout the day. And the more that we're able to get smarter about the way we work with tools, then the more we're able to deal with those other issues that come up, whether it's just simply working on something else or dealing with the more complex things that AI and robotics cannot do for us. So tell me a little bit about what you are looking forward to with the panel discussion on robots, AI, and blockchain.
So it's actually a pretty interesting situation I'm in. I find myself the week before Construction Institute Women Who Build 2023 in Canada, speaking to the American Bar Association in their forum on construction law. And we're actually talking about the use of blockchain in construction. And it's their focus this year for their 2023 forum on construction law. So this is not something that people are just, chatting about. We've had an entire American Bar Association conference set up around where we are, how blockchain can help, the efficiencies it can create, and how we can, through the use of robots and AI, get some incremental increase. And it's not to say we want robots and no people. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And people thinking that that's the way things are going to go is counterproductive to our increase in productivity currently. And I think that's where we run into some struggle, is adoption and assumptions around what robots can do. And robots and AI can do amazing things. Don't get me wrong. They can't replace humans. There are some things that will always require humans to be there. And so I think the more comfort we can get with that, while embracing the technologies that can give us a boost, the better off we all are as a community and as a construction building segment and sector.
Well, I'm very interested in what time will bring for us with robots in construction, particularly from a safety perspective. And, you know, I'm an industrial engineer by education, and I've spent a lot of time in manufacturing facilities where robots are there, you know, they're in use. And our definition of a robot, everybody's, we're not talking R2D2 or C3PO. We're talking about an arm that moves and places and, you know, does whatever pieces and parts of the automation that can be necessary. And even in a manufacturing environment, the entire part cannot be built by robots. It's all broken down into these pieces and parts. And one of the things that determines how the process is broken down is the risk and the safety, and what can assigning a task to a robot do to decrease the worker's exposure to risk of incident or injury. And I look forward to what that could mean for construction. I mean, we just saw another big news about a trench collapse killing 2 people in New York. And then there was one, 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago in the Midwest that killed 3 people, trench collapses. I mean, I wish we were beyond that, but we're not. So how cool would it be if we could be looking at robots for those kinds of situations?
Well, and we already are in a lot of cases. It's just we've not scaled the technology to be able to do on a larger scale. And that's the adoption piece that I think that if we can increase adoption and increase folks' mind ability to just expand beyond simple ditch diggers that are remote control. That's the baby version of what we intend to do in the future. So I think that there are a lot of ways that we can use the risk analysis. That is the key to make sure that we're following the appropriate key indicators. And I think really in terms of the ability to have a safer work environment, I think we're already there. There are a lot of technologies that have already come out. One I'm very proud about working on myself is copper orbital welding. We can do that now. We can do it safely. We can do it where the welders aren't looking at an arc or a flame or an open flame. We can do it where there's no open flame. We can then, in addition, the gases and anything that's inhaled by the welders previously by doing it by hand is enclosed in a orbital welding machine. So welders don't go home with eyes bloodshot or temporary blindness from what they see when they're welding. They don't inhale nasty fumes from the metals, the tungsten, whatever they're using within their process. And so these technologies exist already today. The problem we're having is adoption, because construction is such a paper-rich, paper-driven workplace. So we're getting there. It's just taking some additional maneuvering and explanation to folks that increasing quality and decreasing worker safety can exist together and should.
Yes, and can and should. Well, and I think that there are barriers to entry with new technologies, especially the one that you just used as an example, the orbital welding, because you know, new technology is very expensive, and a lot of the companies that are actually doing the orbital welding don't have those kinds of resources. And so, yes, we want to do that, but the we doesn't consider the fact that there are economics in play with the actual boots on the ground people who are going to be using those things. So it seems like, and I think CI, Construction Institute, is an excellent venue to talk about these things, which is kind of where this conversation is about to go to, right? Because so much is owner driven and then CM driven, and owner driven, then architect, then CM, then the trades. And so while like with so many examples over the history of construction, there are great ideas out there, but until the owners start demanding it and the architects and engineers start using it in their designs, it doesn't get pushed down to the CMs and then to the trades. And it's like, no, it's almost like you need that cross discipline discussion, so that if we truly want to bring this new technology to the day-to-day, then we need to kind of make sure that we're supporting that through how we buy our work to be done, right? I want you to use this machine because it's easier. I'm going to include it in the contract. And yes, I expect that you're going to charge me for it. And yes, I know there's going to be additional training, but it is that important to me as the owner. So it's kind of like those kinds of conversations need to happen in order to see change.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is education for the owners. So for instance, with the red metal orbital welding from Critical Systems, we can eliminate leaks. So when you look at typical welding, the leak percentage could be 10%. It could be even higher than that. So finding a leak on a job site happens after substantial completion in many cases. So you can't actually begin working on your facility until all these leaks are found. Some leaks take a small amount of time to find. Some take weeks in a large hospital setting. So if you can mitigate the risk of extending your schedule at the beginning, then you're much more likely to get to your finish line on time because you've planned for it. And what the risk that happens with current welding is that there is a leak process that has to happen and be resolved before the end of the project and before retention dollars can be released back to these trade partners. And people need to get paid. So if we can mitigate risk, increase quality, and do it all to the benefit of the owner, it's a win-win-win.
And I mean, if you think about, the commissioning process, so a pharmaceutical or a healthcare build, the commissioning and validation process can be very, very long. And those industries are typically the ones that are most schedule driven, because you're not getting that drug to market. You're not getting those, so you're not being able to finish the final trials and all of that, which, if you're in the pharmaceutical space, that, that chart where the first one to market holds 70% of the market share throughout the life cycle of the drug. The second one to market holds like 20%. And then the rest of the market is shared by everybody else who happens to follow. So construction in that industry is so important, schedule driven wise. So, wow, that would be a great, not only a value proposition, but in the context of making sure that in construction, we're defining value engineering correctly. It's not always cost savings for the construction itself. It's cost savings over the life cycle of the job and into the life cycle of the building. So those are really good points. And I think CI and the Women Who Build Summit is a perfect forum for this conversation because it's across all of those specialties.
Absolutely. And it matters to me a lot what people in the field and their experience is. If the field can't work with it, then nobody can work with it, because our projects happen because our field. And so we need to remember that, and we need to encourage and train those folks that are on job sites to continually improve. That's what makes us all better, is continual improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are a lot of the trades that are really wanted. They're hungry for these new technologies. And yet I can't tell you how many times I've heard, here's a great idea, and not just trade partners, CMs, GCs, all across the board. When the owner starts to ask for it, that's when we'll deliver. They're waiting, like that's when we'll provide it, because they have a lot of these ideas and these innovations, and they're really phenomenal. But if the owner's not up for it and they don't have an open mind, it's not a good business decision for them to develop that technology further. There's a lot of technology that's hidden in these individual kind of think tanks, because everybody's thinking, you know, some of the problems that they solve are just amazing, but the owners need to want it and demand it and support it.
And I think that this is one of the things that I've been very fortunate with. So working in the pharmaceutical sector, biotech and R&D, these folks are very often driven by safety. And so they can't necessarily take a low bid number. We have to prioritize and put percentage weights on things that we categorize and rate the contractors so we can select the best fit for the team. It can't be about low bid if you're trying to ensure a schedule, you're trying to ensure quality. And obviously there are ways to do that. But in terms of the actual need at the end of the day, it's for safe, innovative, document savvy contractors. And document savvy means they can leverage technology, not necessarily just the blueprints, just the paper. Leveraging those technologies to keep all of your plans current. You know, if you use a plan grid or Autodesk that owns plan grid now, you can, if you are on the wrong, you should be ashamed of yourself because it's all right there. As long as you turn on your machine and you set sync, you should see the most current set of drawings. And so this is huge. In the beginning of my career, we printed out plans and we took them into the field. We called and we said, I'm on my way, or I did a walkie-talkie on my Nextel. And so it's just a very different world that we're in now. And thankfully so. No, there's no opportunity to say, I don't have the most current drawing. It's on your iPad.
Yeah. What do you hope people walk away with from your contributions to this summit? What are you hoping they carry in their back pocket? If so, here, let me give you more context to my question. I think you have an answer, but I'm gonna refine. So, you know, we always have our bullet points of things like our objectives when we're talking about, but the reality is that people only remember a few, right? They only remember a few. So which are the few that you really want people to walk away with?
Lean into innovation, ask the questions, and challenge the innovation. So if you can do that, then we're always continually improving as an organization and as a sector. So to me, that's a really key component. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to not know the answers. So many people ask a question already knowing the answer, when some of the best questions are, you know, I'm going to ask this question, I have no idea what the answer is, but you're crowdsourcing the answer from an audience that is in it every single day. And so it really is the most rich opportunity to get the feedback from the people in the field. I really want to hear what people think. And I want to listen to what they have to say and hear what their problems are. Those are the things that excite me, hearing the problems and thinking about, okay, that's something someone considers a problem, but we don't have to consider it a problem. How can we innovate around this? And encouraging more people to do that. Google is available to us all. And it seems so often now that people won't even use the resources they have to do a little bit of research themselves. So do a little bit of research, ask the questions, and let's chat. That's what I'm most excited about.